his shirt.
Let's
Not
play some
fake
damn
blood,
chess.
but real, pulsing from a wound in his abdomen. He had been shot, not with a blank, not with a harmless prop, but with something real. The set descended into chaos. Paramedics were called. Brandon was rushed to New Hanover Regional Medical Center and underwent hours of emergency surgery. Doctors tried desperately to stop the internal bleeding, but the bullet had torn through too much. Despite every effort, Brandon Lee was pronounced dead at 1:03 p.m. on March 31st, 1993. He was 28 years old. The immediate response of the production crew was a state of disbelief. Accidents do happen on set, but never like this. Not when the prop gun was supposed to have blanks loaded, which creates the sound and muzzle flash, but shoots no projectile. Yet something had pierced Brandon's body with lethal efficiency. Everything had gone terribly, irreversibly. To happen on set, but never like this. Not when the prop gun was supposed to have blanks loaded, which creates the sound and muzzle flash, but shoots no projectile. Yet something had pierced Brandon's body with lethal efficiency. Everything had gone terribly, irreversibly wrong.
What the fuck?
The actor who had pulled the trigger, Michael Massey, was devastated. The moment the gravity of the occurrence hit him, he later termed it the night that robbed him of his innocence. Massey stayed away from acting for quite a long time, terrified of speaking about that night. It was said by many on the production that he never really recovered. Brandon Lee slain on set, actor dies in freak accident. Such were the headlines that broke to the world. Yet beyond the headlines, behind it lurked a storm of unanswered questions. How could this happen on a movie set, like those seen in professional terms? Who was in charge of maintaining gun safety? Why was the weapon not inspected prior to the scene? And most chillingly, what exactly was inside that gun when the trigger was pulled? The official report issued at the beginning was vague. Some speculated a blank misfiring. Others said a fragment of debris might be lodged in the barrel. But all of the above could not stand in light of the autopsy report. A real .44 caliber slug taken out from Brandon's body. That's not just an accident. It is a loaded weapon that shoots a rising star in front of a room full of people. And this wasn't the first time something went wrong on that set. Not even close. The Curse of the Crow set. Long before Brandon Lee collapsed on the studio floor, people on set were already whispering that the Crow was cursed. The production had been plagued with bizarre mishaps from day one. Just a few weeks into filming, a crew member, a carpenter, was horrifically burned after a piece of equipment he was working on made contact with live wires. It was a freak accident, something that could have easily turned fatal. The same day, 2 other crew members were injured in unrelated incidents. That day alone was enough to spark rumors, but the bad luck didn't stop there. Set pieces malfunctioned. Equipment failed. A storm destroyed part of the outdoor set. Actors were injured in small but accumulating ways. At first, people laughed it off.
All these
They
goddamn
started calling it
motherfuckers.
the Curse of the Crow as a joke. But behind the laughter was a growing unease. Even seasoned professionals who'd worked on dozens of productions began to feel something was off. Then came the long nights. The cast and crew were pushed to the brink with 18-hour days and brutal turnaround times. Some were clocking 90 to 100 hours a week, barely able to sleep or think clearly. That kind of exhaustion isn't just unsustainable, it's dangerous. Corners were
Now
cut.
fuck up and overlook
Safety
it.
protocols became loose.
God,
The pressure to finish the film on time was crushing. With so many dangerous stunts already in the can, people assumed the worst was behind them. They couldn't have been more wrong. Moreover, there was the story itself, which added to the morbidly grotesque atmosphere. The crow tale of a man who, along with his betrothed, was slain, and who rises from the grave to take revenge on both. This was dark and violent, poetic, a gothic fantasy steeped in death and vengeance. Brandon's role, that of Eric Draven, is resurrected post-mortem. None would have failed to recognize the symbolism after his actual death. The lines blurring had been painted because of that grim fantasy for those witnessing both realities. Julianne Gary, a journalist for Entertainment Weekly covering production, spoke about the unsettling mood around the set. Nothing ever seemed to go right, she said. There was a sustained thread of trepidation that just grew worse as filming continued. Julianne Gary, a journalist for Entertainment Weekly covering production, spoke about the very unsettling mood around the set. Nothing ever seemed to go right, she said. There was a sustained thread of trepidation that just grew worse as filming continued. By the time Brandon was preparing to shoot his final scenes, many were already nervous. They had made it through so many close calls, he thought. Almost over, just a week or two more of shooting, and then they could finally rest from all this. Little did they know that their biggest danger was yet to come. The scene that was to take the life of Brandon was one that was never thought to have been considered a big deal. It had no requirement of a stunt double, no explosions, or fire. It was as simple as Brandon walking through a door carrying groceries. He gets shot, falls, and then the camera is stopped. Done. No one expects an extraordinary event, and yet it became the saddest moment in the whole production. The making of the movie. It was in the aftermath of Brandon's death that many began to be introspective concerning the destiny of the crow from the start.
And we waited around for hours, and then they came out and told us that he passed on.
As if propelling it to be doomed even before the shooting began. Some theorized supernatural interventions. Some linked whatever had happened with the script itself, an ill motif wrapped around the whole issue of violence and resurrection. Very few pointed out the kind of close personal relationship with death that Brandon had, considering, for instance, that he had buried his father, Bruce Lee, when he was just 8 years old, under very enigmatic circumstances. One crew member has said that he will only speak under anonymity in line with this. People have tried to say it was haunted. I don't know about that. But there were definitely bad vibes on the set. The truth about the gun that slayed him? That would reveal something far worse than a curse. The smoking gun. After the initial shock faded and the grief settled in, investigators turned their attention to one critical question. How did a real bullet end up in a movie prop gun? This wasn't a case of a misfired blank or a stunt gone wrong. The autopsy confirmed that a full .44 caliber slug had pierced Brandon Lee's abdomen, a fact that shattered the illusion that this was just a freak accident. It meant a deadly mistake had occurred somewhere in the chain of command, and someone had loaded that weapon with a round capable of slaying. The revolver used in the scene was a real firearm, a Smith & Wesson Model 629-44 Magnum. In Hollywood, it's not uncommon to use real guns for authenticity. They are modified to fire blanks, which produce a loud bang and muzzle flash without a bullet. But this time, something went horribly wrong. Here's what actually happened. Earlier in production, the crew had shot a close-up scene involving the same revolver. For realism, the gun needed to appear loaded, so they used dummy rounds. These look like real bullets, but they're supposed to be completely inert. No powder, no primer, just for show. But the props team made a critical mistake. While they removed the gunpowder, they left the primer in the dummy cartridges. Now, in a real bullet, the primer is what ignites the powder to fire the bullet. Even without powder, a primer still carries a small explosive charge. When one of the dummy rounds was dry-fired during that earlier close-up, the primer went off just enough to dislodge the bullet from its casing and push it into the barrel of the gun, a condition known as a squib load. No one noticed. No one checked the barrel afterward. The bullet continued to sit on the barrel of the gun, a deadly waiting trap. Days later, dummy cartridges were extracted from the barrel in preparation for Brandon's scene, and nothing was put in its stead except for blanks. Blanks keep gunpowder and a primer, but they have no actual bullet at the end. They are designed to simulate real gunfire for the motion picture, not firing a projectile, with flashes, smoke, and sound. But now that there was a stuck bullet in the barrel with a blank behind it, something abhorrent happened. Michael Massey pulled the trigger, igniting the blank, and the gas and pressure caused by that resulted in the forcing the lodged bullet out of the barrel as if it were a live round. There was no sign. There was no jam. Just a thunderous gunshot and the flash of light, and Brandon was on the floor. By the time anyone could perceive correctly, it was already too late. It wasn't merely an accident, but a concatenation of negligence. The weapon should have undergone inspection. The dummy rounds should have been properly manufactured. The firearm should have been cleared by a licensed armorer, in particular, before any live pyrotechnics were exercised on the set. But here is the most horrifying part. There was no licensed weapons master present on the set that night. Instead, a stressed, exhausted, and likely unqualified prop assistant handled a working gun with an understanding of what job hazards it posed. Most likely none. One could call this level of negligence criminal anywhere else. In Hollywood, they called it an error. The official investigation later corroborated this line of events leading to Brandon's death. However, while the report classified the event as an accident, many in the industry and Brandon's close family believed it fell closer to criminal negligence. One insignificant lapse